David was a good man, standing 5 feet 11 inches tall, with a warm, kind face and a neatly trimmed beard. He loved his girlfriend deeply, and together they raised 2 children whose laughter filled their small apartment. David worked hard, believing his love and effort could protect their happiness. But life began to fray. Pressures mounted, and small disagreements became painful arguments. The laughter faded, replaced by silence and tension. One day, after a final argument, his girlfriend left with the children. The apartment became hollow, every toy a painful reminder of loss. David was utterly alone, haunted by memories and regret. All that remained was a man, a beard, and a broken heart lost in the ruins of his own making. The days blurred into a monotonous cycle of grief. David felt himself sinking, pulled under by a current of despair so strong it stole his breath. He saw no way out, no light at the end of the long, dark tunnel. The thought of ending his own life began to whisper in the quiet moments, a tempting promise of relief from the relentless pain. It felt like the only way to silence the screaming emptiness inside his soul. He stood on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the abyss, believing that one more step would finally bring him peace. The world had taken everything from him, and he felt he had nothing left to give. He sat in his car one night, the engine off, the darkness of the street pressing in on him. He was at his lowest point, a place where hope could not survive. In that moment of complete and total desperation, a name came to his lips, a name he hadn't spoken with any real meaning in years. "Jesus," he whispered, the sound barely audible in the quiet car. "Jesus, if you are real, if you can hear me, please help me. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live like this. Please just help me." It was not a prayer of a devout man. It was the desperate cry of a drowning soul reaching for a lifeline. A few days later, a strange impulse led him into a small bookstore. He found himself in the religious section, his hand reaching for a simple leather-bound Bible. He paid for it and walked out, not sure why he had bought it. He tossed the book onto the passenger seat of his car, and there it stayed. For a full week, the Bible was just an object, a silent passenger on his lonely drives. He would glance at it, a quiet reminder of his desperate plea in the dark. It was a seed of hope he was not yet ready to plant, but he couldn't bring himself to throw it away either. One afternoon, overcome by a wave of loneliness, he finally picked it up. He opened the book to a random page, the thin paper feeling foreign in his hands. He began to read. The words were just words at first, but he kept reading. Then he closed his eyes and began to pray again. This time, it was different. He asked for forgiveness. He asked for guidance. He asked to rebuild a relationship with a God he barely knew. He prayed for over an hour, pouring out his heart, his pain, and his brokenness right there in his car. The world outside disappeared as he spoke to the quiet presence he felt for the first time. Just as he finished his prayer, his phone buzzed. It was a text from an old friend, a man he hadn't spoken to in months. The message was simple. "Hey man, thinking about you. You should come to my church with me tonight. It starts soon." The timing felt like more than a coincidence. It felt like an answer. A wave of hesitation washed over David. It was late. He was tired. He wasn't a church person. But the small spark of hope that had been ignited by his prayer urged him to go. He typed back a quick, "Okay, where is it?" and started the car. He slipped into the back pew just as the service was beginning, feeling out of place and exposed. The music was uplifting, but he kept his head down, unsure of what to expect. Then the pastor began to speak. David listened, and as he did, he felt a strange sense of recognition. The pastor spoke of feeling lost, of being broken by the world, and of the pain of losing those you love. It was as if the pastor was telling David's own story from the pulpit. Every word seemed aimed directly at his heart, describing the very struggles he was facing in his own life. The pastor talked about despair, about feeling like you have reached the end of your rope. He spoke of the emptiness that follows loss and the temptation to give up completely. But then he spoke of a greater hope. He spoke of a God who meets us in our darkest moments, who doesn't turn away from our broken pieces but gathers them up to make something new. David felt tears welling in his eyes. For the first time since his family left, he did not feel entirely alone. He felt seen. He felt understood. In that church, surrounded by strangers, he felt a glimmer of belonging. When the service ended, David didn't feel instantly healed. The deep ache in his heart was still there. The problems he faced had not magically disappeared. The road ahead still looked long and difficult, but something had shifted inside him. The heavy blanket of hopelessness had been lifted, just enough to let a little light in. He left the church that night with a fragile, newfound resolve. He was still struggling, yes, but now he was struggling towards something. He was no longer just trying to survive. He was beginning the journey of trying to find Jesus. The path to faith was not a straight line. There were days David felt the old despair creeping back in, whispering its familiar lies. He would miss his children with a pain so sharp it took his breath away. The temptation to fall back into his old, empty ways was strong. But now, he had a new weapon. He had the Bible in his car, and he had the memory of the pastor's words. He held on to them like a lifeline. He started reading a little bit every day. He prayed, even when his prayers felt clumsy and unheard. He was building a new foundation, one prayer at a time. He began to understand that this journey was not about his own strength. It was about surrender. It was about letting go of the need to be in control, the need to fix everything himself. He had tried that, and it had led him to ruin. Now he was learning to trust in something greater than his own flawed efforts. He devoted himself to God, not with the perfection of a saint, but with the honest heart of a broken man. He surrendered his pain, his anger, his failure, and his loneliness. He laid it all at the foot of the cross, trusting that God could handle the weight of it all. Slowly, gently, hope began to bloom in the barren soil of his heart. It wasn't a loud, triumphant fanfare, but a quiet, steady peace that settled in his soul. He found comfort in the words of the scripture. A verse from Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, became his anchor. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. He realized he couldn't earn his way back to happiness. He couldn't work hard enough to fix what was broken. Salvation wasn't a prize to be won. It was a gift to be received. David's life was not magically perfect. The scars of his past remained, but they were no longer gaping wounds. They were reminders of where he had been and how far he had come. He was saved by grace, through a faith he never knew he had. His journey from the depths of despair had led him to the foot of the cross, where he found not an end, but a new beginning. He was still a man with a beard and brown skin, but now he was also a man filled with a hope that could never be taken away. He was a man redeemed,